In today's episode of Podcasting Secrets, you're going to learn how to leverage LinkedIn and PR to establish credibility, attract high-quality guests, and grow your audience authentically. Karen Yankovich is my guest today, and she reveals insider strategies for creating a powerful personal brand, connecting with influential people in your niche, and turning your podcast into a magnet for opportunities. This episode is packed with game-changing insights you won't want to miss. Hello, incurable creators. I'm excited to bring you some bonus episodes featuring exclusive interviews from the 2023 PodUp Virtual Podcasting Summit. Each Thursday for months, you're going to hear interviews from a diverse range of podcasting and marketing experts. My hope is these repurposed interviews will inspire you with new ideas and insights to take your podcast to the next level. And of course, remember to listen every Tuesday for our regular episodes of Podcasting Secrets as well. Now, let's dive into today's bonus interview from PodUp's 2013 Podcasting Summit. Hello, I'm Nathan William, and I am here today with Karen Yankovich. Karen is the host of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. She's also an expert at LinkedIn marketing and marketing through PR. Thank you so much for joining us today, Karen.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
Can you start off by just telling us a little bit more about you and your story?
Yeah. So, my background is in sales and marketing, IT sales, actually. And, one of the things, I'm a little bit older than social media. So I learned how to sell, human to human marketing, right? Which really, all these years later is still a timeless way of marketing. So when I started to shift my business to marketing consulting business, I gravitated to LinkedIn because I felt like that was the most like the timeless marketing that I knew and breathed and lived, most of my life. So what it did was it kept me focused on like the brand of you, right? If you and I are going to have a conversation, you're only going to be willing to have a conversation with me if I look worthy of your time. So I really dove into helping people create a personal brand and then how to get the people on the calendar that you want to have on your calendar that are going to facilitate whatever it is you want to have in your business, right? So if you're a podcaster, who are the guests you want to have? Where maybe you want to be on other shows because that can help promote your show, right? So who are hosting shows that have an audience similar to your audience? And how are you meeting these people? As having a podcast myself, every single day I get cold pitches. And, I can't really call through them all. I don't have time to really look at them all. But if you take time to actually build a relationship with me, maybe tell me you watched my show, connect with me on LinkedIn, look credible, look worthy of my time, I'm going to pay attention. And that is more how you're going to get more visibility for your show, right? So I kind of took those strategies that I've known forever and used the tools that are now, ubiquitous to us, like LinkedIn and PR, and crafted a strategy that helps elevate podcast hosts and entrepreneurs in general to building a brand and a business that can change their lives, their business, and their bank accounts, frankly, on a micro-targeted basis, not a what's the algorithm doing today and let's spam 100,000 people.
Right. Well, I want to add my 2 cents, my testimony that what you're doing there really makes a difference. In my consulting practice that I ran for years, essentially every single one of my clients either came from a referral or from LinkedIn. I can't think of a client that came any other way. And you look at the software company, we rolled out a brand new software, PodUp, a little over 2 months ago, and we have a little over 50 paying customers right now. And we went to a trade show and we got a few people from the trade show. But other than that, almost every single other customer has come from LinkedIn.
But trade shows are still human to human, Nathan, right? Like it's not like you're putting content out there and expecting the miraculous social media gods to send you clients with their credit cards in their hands, right? That works if you've got a $2 or a $5 something. But if you really want to build relationships with potential clients and contracts and really look at this from a bigger perspective, it comes down to the people you know. And it always has, and it always will, right? It doesn't mean that other stuff doesn't work, but it takes longer. And it's a little bit more cross your fingers marketing than actually taking some time, doing some research, and building relationships.
So why do you think LinkedIn works so well?
It only works so well if you work it, right? But because it comes down to what makes it work well is when you show up authentically, right? If so many people feel like they have to be more left-brained or corporate or, not be able to really shine a light on what makes them unique on LinkedIn. They need to look like everyone else. And that's so not true. LinkedIn is, people think it's like your online resume. Well, your resume is all about who you used to be, right? Your LinkedIn profile should be positioning you for the person you're stepping into. So if you're a host of a podcast, you absolutely want to show up. You are the media, right? You are the media. You want to be building relationships, really shining a light on yourself as if you're peers with the biggest top podcast host in the world, because you are, right? So it's really about how you're showing up. And when you're doing that, that's when the magic starts to happen, right? And the most beautiful part of this is when you're having these conversations without expectation, right? Hey, I have a podcast, you have a podcast, let's talk, maybe we can collaborate. That's where the magic happens, not, hey, I've got this thing, give me a credit card. It's let's have a conversation and see where this goes and see what opportunities are there. Always, that's where the magic happens. And when you build relationships with intention like that, the contracts follow, the opportunities follow.
So one of the reasons I think LinkedIn works so well is because it establishes credibility. Think about every time I go to buy a product or a service, almost every time now, I go look at a review. If I'm in a new town and I want to find a great Mexican restaurant to eat at, I'm going to go look at, TripAdvisor, and I'm going to see reviews. If I want to buy a new book on podcasting, I'm going to go into Amazon and I'm going to read reviews before I buy that product. And if I'm going to look at reviews before I spend $10 on a book, think how important reviews are for an important purchase, like hiring a consultant or hiring an employee. And so one of the reasons that I think LinkedIn works so well is it provides that same kind of credibility. We have other people that are providing ratings and reviews that are endorsing us for certain skills, and people can gather a sense of, at least to a certain extent, the credibility about us and what we're really good at that isn't possible if I just reach out to them with a resume, if I reach out to them with an email.
Exactly. You're reaching out with the strength of your profile behind you.
That's right. And when I send an email out trying to do a marketing message, or I send a LinkedIn message out, I bet I get at least 3 or 4 or 5 times the response from the LinkedIn messages I do from the cold email outreaches.
I love that you talked about credibility, Nathan, because that's why I infuse PR into everything I do. Again, let's say you're a consultant and you consult on, pens, right? And like you said, people are checking you out. They're throwing your name in a Google search. Even if you may have only be selling pens or consulting to sell pens for 6 months now. But if you've taken the time to position yourself as an expert in pens, and when they Google you, all these articles come up with you talking about the value of having the right pens, right? It immediately gives you that credibility. And LinkedIn is a great place to build relationships with those journalists, right? So I mean, I have a podcast. I would love to tell you that I wake up every morning to all these messages on LinkedIn saying, I listened to to episode 12 last night and loved it and tagged me. It doesn't happen that often. Here's the thing. Journalists are prolific, right? I am prolific every week. We just recorded to episode 250 of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast.
Congratulations.
There's 250 freaking episodes you can just kind of poke through. And then if you wanted to, if building a relationship with me was valuable to you, I'm handing you this opportunity. Hey, Karen, I listened to episode, 210, loved when you talked to Nathan about this or that. And you shared it with your audience, which is providing me value, right? So LinkedIn is a beautiful place to build relationships with the journalists and the media personalities that talk about what you're expert in. And when they know who you are and they use you for quotes and things like that, it immediately elevates your credibility and helps you land those bigger contracts. So people think about LinkedIn as like, oh, everybody's spamming me, everybody wants to sell me something. Just do the opposite. Build true, genuine relationships there, and you're going to be blown away by the opportunities that present itself to you.
Okay, so we've talked for a minute about the why behind LinkedIn marketing. Because we're also covering PR marketing, can we talk about the why behind that? Why is PR so important for a podcaster?
Well, I mean, I just touched on it a little bit, right? It's the credibility. Let's just use podcasts as an example, because it is truly, in my experience, what gets me the most visibility is being interviewed on somebody else's podcast. I've been interviewed for newspapers and magazines and been on TV segments and things like that, and none of them get me as much play as being interviewed on a podcast, because you've got this genuine conversation happening for 15 to 20 minutes or half hour, however long the show is, right? People really get to understand your voice. You have an opportunity to really kind of connect on a human-to-human, heart-to-heart basis with the audience that's listening. And then, again, when somebody is looking to maybe hire you, or as a podcast host, if you're looking to interview somebody that would be really valuable for your show, that media that you have gives you that additional credibility, right? If they check you out and they can't find anything, you might not be worthy of their time to be interviewed on their show, right? It's up to you to create that credibility so that you can get who you want, right? And it doesn't mean you need to get Oprah, right? Because Oprah's probably not going to share your show, right? So you want to think about who are the journalists that you want to be connected to, where you can collaborate and they can feature you. And then, because every year that goes by, you're going to have another page of Google and another page of Google and another page of Google, and people check you out, all of which absolutely accelerates the growth of your show and the growth of your career.
One interesting point that you made was about when you talked about PR, you used podcasting as an example of PR. And I agree with you 100%. In the old school days, PR was getting in the newspaper, getting on TV, getting on the radio, the old school media.
And it still is, right? It still is. But it depends on what you're looking to do.
Yeah, but I love your point that PR today involves all these digital strategies. It involves getting on a podcast and getting on a YouTube channel and getting on a blog.
And here's the thing, Nathan, when you back in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and even today, if you have the budget and the desire, which is certainly, people do, and they continue to and will do this, hire a PR agency, right? Maybe you've got $10,000 a month up, for the most part. What you're buying is their Rolodex, right? You're buying their connections. You can use LinkedIn to make your own connections, right? At some point, you might have the budget to hire a $10,000 a month PR agency, and it's absolutely worth every dime if that's a strategy that's part of what you're doing. But until then, build your own Rolodex. Use LinkedIn to build your own Rolodex until you can afford to bring in a PR agency to do it for you.
And it is the most effective way to do that. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to the first topic that we were talking about with LinkedIn. And what are the three most important things that a podcaster needs to know to be successful in their LinkedIn marketing?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. First of all, you have a brand. You are the host of the show. You need to shine a light on that. LinkedIn is not about your show. It is about you. So you want to show up as credible, as the expert, as an influencer, because you are all of those things if you're the host of a show, right? So you want to make sure you're doing that. And remember that you're building relationships human to human. So I don't want to see on there, Nathan is known for, I want you to talk in first person like you're speaking to me, right? Not third person, because it doesn't make you seem important. It just puts a wall up between you and the person you want to connect with, right? So first person, shine a light on you, and talk about why you decided to host a podcast, what you love about being the host of a podcast, because that's about you, keeping in mind, nobody really cares about you. They care about what it means for them, right? So talk about the fact, like for me, I can say, I started my podcast because I was talking to so many women that, just were playing small and they weren't thinking big enough. And I know more wealthy women on the planet changes the world. So what I could do is reach more of these wealthy women with my podcast, right? So I'm telling you about me, but I'm making it about them, right? Because that's what people are going to go, wait, wow, I need to learn a little bit more about this, right? So tell me about you, but make it about me. And remember that it is not about your show, it's about you. But then the second thing is make sure your show's in there. Create an experience specifically for your show. I have that. This next thing I actually don't do, but it might be something you want to do, is create a company page for your show. Remember, every page you create requires more content for you to populate it with, right? So for me, I have a company page for my business and my podcast just rolls up under that. But you can create a LinkedIn company page specifically for your show. If you have a company page already, then, roll it up underneath that. But talk about the show. Maybe I share usually my most current episode, like when I remember to change it every week, on my LinkedIn featured section. So people can always go to my LinkedIn and check out one of my most recent shows, right? I have it in media under the experience section. I have a few different shows. I also made it a point of, a big part of what I do is really support marginalized communities where I can. So I make sure that I'm not just putting a bunch of white ladies on the pictures of the shows that I'm showcasing, right? I'm showcasing that I bring in marginalized communities and I talk to people across the world and across, different communities on my show. You want to think about what your ideal, like who you want to draw attention to, who you want listening to your show. What are they going to be attracted to in your profile? And you want to feed that to them. So those are some things you can do as a podcaster. The other thing I would say, and this is again something that, if I had a perfect marketing strategy, this is what it would do. It's not so perfect, so it doesn't happen every week. But nobody's going to click on a link to a post on LinkedIn and listen to your whole show, right? If I have my most latest show comes out and I say, hey, listen this week to the Good Girls Get Rich episode, I might do that, but I have no expectation that people are leading. It's going to lead people to listen to the whole show. What I do is create little promo videos, right? This week on the show, I got a chance to talk about this, or this. You've got to check it out because maybe then they'll go to their phone and they'll save it to listen to later, right? But they're not going to listen to enough of the show just in normal course of business to take too much time creating content that drives people to listen to the full show. Create some promo content for your episodes and drive them to your show that way.
That's really good advice. Some people would call that the hook, where you take the hook from your interview, the most important tidbit, takeaway, right? And put that in a really quick video and publish that instead of publishing the whole episode and make the text be about the hook and what's in it for them.
Hey, and then you can tell them how to find the whole show. I mean, it's not hard to find your show if you give them the name of it, right?
That's really good advice. How about finding guests? For using LinkedIn to find guests for your show, what advice do you have for the best way to do that?
You know what? Here's what I do, and here's what I part of the work that I do with the people in my programs, we do this. Find somebody that has an audience. Well, there's two sides of this coin, right? How do you find guests for your show, and how do you find shows that speak to your audience so you can drive more listeners to your show, right? So, how to find guests for your shows? Find a show similar to yours and see who their guests are, right? And connect with them on LinkedIn. And you can even say, hey, I listened to this episode of you, blah, 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 blah. I love your point of view about this, and do it publicly, tagging them, right? So that you're bringing more visibility to everyone in this conversation. And then say, I'd love to continue this conversation on my show because what it makes me think about is this. Would you be interested in coming on to continue this conversation, right? Like genuine conversations, not pitches, right? Because that is where people want to be heard. They don't want to be pitched. So genuinely jump into conversations, but do the research. On the other side of that coin, one way to get more listeners to your show is to be interviewed on other people's shows. So think about, I have an audience of ABC. Who else has an audience of ABC? And then I would be looking I would literally go to iTunes, throw their name. Like, let's say, Nathan, I felt like you had an audience of exactly the people I want to be, that I want to attract to my show, right? I would throw your name in iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and I'd see what other shows you were interviewed on, because I'm going to be interviewed on all those shows, right? And now I can, again, go back to LinkedIn, build a relationship with the host of that show by connecting with them, tagging them. I would probably spread it out a little bit. You don't want to continually use the same person's name, but for sure, we live in a digital world. It's not hard to do this research. And by the way, all of this research can be done by a VA. So even, on LinkedIn, you really need to be you. People think they're talking to you. So nobody logs into my LinkedIn account but me. If you're talking to me on LinkedIn, you are talking to me. But my VA can do a lot of this research for me and say, here's 10 people you want to connect with. Here's the shows they were on. Listen to them, poke through it, read the show notes before you, and strike up a conversation because you want to get interviewed on the show. Because when I get interviewed on these shows that I think have similar audiences to mine, it drives more listeners to my show.
Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is sponsored by PodUp, the ultimate podcasting platform. As podcasters, we're always looking for ways to simplify our workflows, grow our reach, and make more money. What if I told you that there's a tool that combines more than 35 essential podcasting features into one platform? That's exactly what PodUp offers, and it's transforming how we create, grow, monetize, publish, syndicate, and do so many other things with our podcasting content. From recording and editing to website building and audience engagement, PodUp covers virtually the entire podcasting process. What sets PodUp apart is its focus on growth and monetization. The platform includes AI-powered features that help you save time on tasks like creating short video clips and transcribing episodes. It also offers tools for guest management, content syndication, and email list building, all accessible from one centralized dashboard. For those of you looking to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, PodUp provides integrated monetization tools that help you market products, courses, and services directly to your audience. What's even better is that with PodUp, you don't have to waste time and money switching between multiple softwares to produce your podcast. With PodUp, you get all 35 modules within one fully integrated platform and for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in simplifying your podcast workflow while expanding your reach and making some money while you're at it, check out podup.com. That's PODUP.com and get a free trial of the software. Now, back to the show. How do you feel about posting additional content that is not the episode content, but is related to the show? For example, maybe an outtake from the show of something that you cut out, or maybe a behind the scenes something, or a special question with a guest, or maybe your takeaways of what the most important thing was that you took away from the episode. Posting something different that isn't the episode. Do you see value in that?
I love that. Because really what you're looking to do is stimulate conversation, right? And you're drawing attention to you as the host, and all of that drives more attention to your show, right? So like, let's say you asked a question of your guest on the show. You can say, hey, if you listen to this week's show, somewhere around minute 18, I asked the guest this question and this was her answer. What would your answer be to that question, right? Like, you can definitely do stuff like that.
Asking questions is the best strategy to get engagement on your social posts, which then elevates it in the algorithm so more people see it.
You can even do a quiz. You can even do like one of those like multiple choice like questions. You can say, if you listen to this week's show, then you know that we now know what Mary's favorite color shoes are, and then, were they red, blue, green, or yellow? And you know what I mean? Obviously you find, you can do that. And if they listen, they can say, I know, I listened and it's yellow, right? Where other people might just guess. And it's just a kind of a fun, engaging conversations around your shows.
What is the biggest mistake that you see podcasters make in relation to their LinkedIn marketing?
Pitching and spamming. Using AI tool. Use AI. I love AI. But don't use AI tools to just spit out and message 4,000 people and, just get out of my damn inbox if you don't really want to talk to me. Like, I want to know it's actually you. And you are harming your brand, especially if your brand is your voice. You are harming your brand if you're using these tools to connect with 100 people at a time. You're harming your brand.
And what you're talking about, and I've seen this so many times, you reach out to somebody and they respond and they say something, and then you respond again with your next canned message, and you're not really responding to what they say.
Or even if you didn't respond yet, they get your next canned message. Hey, I haven't heard from you yet. Immediately, I shut down. I don't want any. I don't have time. This is human to human. This is relationships. We talked in the very beginning that our biggest contracts come from referrals, right? If you don't have enough time in your calendar to take a minute to message me personally, I don't have enough time for you. If you're sending me this spam crap, I don't want it, and I don't want any part of you. And you're hurting your brand.
It comes down to the law of reciprocity, right? When someone is willing to invest in their relationship with me, and I know it's them and they're giving their time, I feel an obligation to give back of my time to them. But when I know it's not them, when I know it was not worth their time to communicate with me and they just have a bot doing that, I don't feel that emotional obligation, and hence I don't respond.
And here's the thing, you don't need to do that. I had a situation one time where there's a guy that was my client. Back in the day, I had an agency where we did a lot of work for people. So I had this client for a few years, and I know this guy very well. We had learned his voice. We were posting as if we were him across other platforms. And I got a call recently from somebody that turns out coincidentally works for this guy. And he said to me, we're using this tool. Turns out to be a bot, right? We're using this tool. I put 60 unbelievably good leads on my boss's calendar last month, and I didn't close any of them. I was like, well, first of all, I know your boss. I know how personable he is. How good could the leads have been if you sent him? You just wasted 60 hours of his time, right? Like, you think that if you get 1 or 2 sales, it's worth the effort, but the time you're wasting to get there is incredible. Stop and just do a little research on the front end and build genuine relationships, and your close rate is going to skyrocket because you're doing this in a much more targeted way. You don't have to talk to 10 people or 50 people to close one opportunity. You talk to two, you're closing 4 to 5 because you're doing this in a very strategic and targeted and researched way.
Yeah, I agree with you. LinkedIn can definitely, if we do it right, can improve our conversion rates and help us use our time a lot more effectively. Let's go to PR. What are the 3 most important things that podcasters need to know about effective PR?
Well, first of all, remember that you are the media, right? You are the media. So show up worthy of that title, right? And, I'm going to trying to think about who. I will use Oprah again. Like Oprah had her own show. She was interviewed on a lot of other shows, right? Like the way to get more visibility to your show is to be interviewed on other people's shows, right? That's PR. The top media people in the world have PR agents, right? To get them interviewed on other people's shows, to get their books in front of the right people. They do do that stuff. Do that stuff because that's what gets you more visibility for your show and more credibility, right? Depending on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for guests or you're looking for sponsors for your show, this is how you do that. The PR piece is so important for a podcast to really show up in a big way. And, I guess the last piece of that I would say is remember how great it is when you interview somebody for your show and they share it. So be generous when you're on somebody else's show and share that stuff. Because not only did they appreciate that you're sharing that you were on their show, it's telling other people that you get interviewed by other people and it draws more interviews to you, right? So don't just promote your own show, promote all the other shows you were interviewed on. When you start to get this PR engine running, promote the shows that you're interviewed on, promote the opportunities that you're quoted in the newspapers and the magazines and the blogs, because that will get you more of that. And it deepens the relationship with the journalist.
Yeah, I see a recurring theme here that builds your credibility as well. I was on these other shows, so therefore I'm credible and you can trust me to be on your show. What's the biggest mistake that you've seen people make in regards to their PR?
So here's the biggest mistake I've seen people make in regards to PR. They don't capture the audience. And what I mean by that is, and again, people have podcasts for different reasons, right? Most of the people I work with are entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking to get some business from your podcast. Clearly, there's lots of other reasons to have a podcast, but we'll speak to that for just a second. If you're an entrepreneur, you probably want to be building your email list, right? Don't get interviewed one single time before you're ready to say, if you want to learn more about this topic or more about me, go on over to linkedinquiz.com and take my free quiz. It'll give you the first couple steps in the journey to knowing what to do next on LinkedIn, right? If you get interviewed and you don't do that, you just lost the audience, right? And when I mean lost it, the audience might love you, but in 3 months, they're going to say, does anyone remember who that person was that was telling us about LinkedIn and PR a couple months ago? Because you didn't do your job to capture their email address and continue to market to them, right? Even if it's to just drive them to your show, right? Like make sure that you've got a call to action and you're clear on it and you're not overlooking the importance of that. Depending on the opportunity, you may or may not be able to share it, right? Sometimes you just don't get that opportunity to share it. And in that case, you got to make sure when people Google you, they know exactly how to find you and what you want them to do. But I'm going to say, 75% of the time or more, you have the opportunity to drop in a call to action so that you can try to capture that audience, the audience that's interested in what you're talking about. You don't really care about people that aren't interested, right? So if people are interested, you've given them a really easy way to stay connected to you.
Yeah, as a podcaster, your most valuable asset is your list. And a lead magnet is the most effective way to build that list. So what you're saying here is make sure every opportunity where you're reaching out, where you're reaching people, you use a lead magnet so you can get them onto your list.
Yes. And with the media, please don't let it go to KarenYankovich.com/this-that with 45,000 letters. Spend $10 a year via URL. Like I've got LinkedInquiz.com, right? If you're being interviewed, you want people to roll off your tongue. If they're driving, you want them to be able to remember it, right? And then just point it to it. You don't have to have any fancy connections. Just say, when you type in LinkedInquiz.com, if in my case, it goes to KarenYankovich.com/quiz, right? Which I don't drop in an interview because people don't necessarily know how to spell my name, right? So I want it to be unmistakable how to find it.
Karen, is there a story or a case study about LinkedIn marketing that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would love to share something that just happened this weekend. So I have a client, and actually we've kind of mentored each other at this point. And she bought 100 acres in the Adirondacks in New York, and she's creating this like wellness sanctuary there. And they had this idea about 2 years ago to build a full-size labyrinth on their property. So of course she was my client. So she's got a great LinkedIn profile. She's showing up confidently. She's confidently reaching out. So she confidently reaches out to the foremost labyrinth expert in the world, this guy by the name of Tony Christie, on LinkedIn, and says, "Hey, I've got this idea to build a labyrinth. I'm looking for some help. Would you be willing to help me?" And he said, "I guess, yes," because this past weekend they had the ribbon cutting for the labyrinth, and he came in from Ireland because they had spent the last year and a half together. He was a consultant to her, and she built this labyrinth. And this man has groupies. I mean, I was there. There were groupies there for him, and this is a very non-traditional use of LinkedIn, right? It's not like they got a corporate contract to do leadership training for their company, right? This is very right brain, woo-woo, spiritually based stuff. People that live and breathe that stuff that use LinkedIn to build that first connection. And what I love about that story is not that Christine used LinkedIn and now has this great labyrinth, which, by the way, you can find at Adirondack Labyrinth. It's the name of it. But Christine had the confidence to approach the foremost expert in the world because she knew she had a LinkedIn profile that positioned her as worthy of his time, and had the confidence to reach out to the smartest people in the world about it. That's what I want more people to do. It isn't about using it for the end game. It was about, hey, I'm doing this. You're an expert. How can you help? Right? Like, it was genuinely just, how can we start to build a relationship that would serve us both? And, I got to hang out with both of them this past weekend.
I love it. Is there a story or case study about PR marketing that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's tons, but the one that always comes to mind, and he's probably tired of me talking about him, but maybe not. There's a realtor that I had as a client, and again, had a great LinkedIn profile, and genuinely just had a list of journalists that talked about real estate, right? And would keep an eye on the content they put out there. Remember, I said journalists are prolific. They make it really easy for you, right? So saw an article written by one of the journalists that write about real estate, and he commented on that article, shared the article across several platforms, tagged the journalist, connected with the journalist on LinkedIn, genuinely just continued to provide value to this journalist, right? And said, great article. I shared it in a few places, made sure they tagged him so the journalist knew he was for real. A week later, the journalist called him and said, "Hey, I'm writing an article about housing prices. Can I ask you a couple questions?" So of course he said yes, and turned into a full-page article on NBCnews.com about real estate, about housing prices. Now, it's seen by 85 million people a month, right? Like, so it's not that he's seen by 85 million people. That's not really where that was hugely valuable for him. Where that's valuable for him is when he prints that article, he goes out on a listing appointment for a house that's for sale in his market and drops that and says, "Well, when I was NBC News' housing price specialist, nobody else in his market can do that," right? So he used PR, and it was as simple as just commenting on an article and providing value to the journalist. And the journalist then used him. The only person she quoted in the entire article was my client. And, he now has this media that he can use for the rest of his life, right? And his competition doesn't have that. And you know how much competition real estate has, right? So it can be that fast. Like, that happened in a week, right? It can be that fast.
I love that. The value isn't just in the traffic from the article itself, but it's in how you're able to leverage that credibility in your marketing.
Exactly.
Karen, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. If our audience enjoyed this interview and they want to connect with you or they want to learn more about your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
I'm at Karen Yankovich across all social media, so certainly you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're curious about the strategies that I talk a little bit here, the best way to take the first step is that LinkedIn quiz that I mentioned. That's a for real link, linkedinquiz.com. I didn't make that up. That's a for real link. We just recently released that, summer of 2023. So it's all brand new content, and it'll just help you get your little, because it's not really a cookie cutter approach, right? We can go to YouTube and find strategies for LinkedIn, but Not every strategy is for every person. So this is going to give you a little couple of steps you can take depending on your personality and your marketing style. And check out my podcast, Good Girls Get Rich. We have tips and tricks on LinkedIn and PR marketing every single week. And all of that I mentioned here is, obviously completely complimentary. If you want to know what it's like to get some help, DM me anywhere, and I'm happy to let you know what that looks like.
Sounds great. Thank you again for joining us. And for the Show Summit audience that's joined us, I hope you took value away from this today. And I wish you success in your LinkedIn and your PR marketing. And here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number one, LinkedIn marketing is most effective when you focus on building authentic, human-to-human relationships rather than spamming or using automated tools. Number two, your LinkedIn profile should showcase you as a credible expert and influencer, speaking in first person and highlighting why you host your podcast. Number three, create content on LinkedIn that promotes your podcast, such as short promo videos or engaging questions related to recent episodes, rather than expecting people to listen to full episodes directly from LinkedIn. Number four, use LinkedIn to find podcast guests by connecting with guests from similar shows and engaging with them genuinely before inviting them to your show. Number five, to get more listeners, use LinkedIn to identify and connect with hosts of shows that have similar audience to yours, aiming to be interviewed on their podcasts. Number six, PR for podcasters includes being interviewed on other shows, which builds credibility and drives more listeners to your own podcast. Number seven, when doing PR or guest appearances, always have a clear call to action and a way to capture an audience's contact information, such as directing them to a simple, memorable URL for a lead magnet. Number eight, engage with journalists and media personalities in your niche on LinkedIn by commenting on and sharing their content, which can lead to opportunities for quotes or features. Number nine, the value of PR isn't just in immediate traffic, but in the long-term credibility it provides, which you can leverage in your marketing efforts. And finally, number 10, successful LinkedIn and PR strategies are about providing value, building genuine relationships, and positioning yourselves as an expert worthy of others' time and attention. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I wish you success in your LinkedIn marketing and your PR. And if you're looking for a great podcasting platform with more than 35 integrated modules to make your life a lot easier, I recommend you check out PodUp. You can get a free trial at podup.com.